One of the things that I think many of us associate with Jesus, if you were to ask someone, even if they weren't a follower of Christ or a member of a church, if you were to ask just someone on the street, what do you know about Jesus' manner of teaching? I think many people would say, well, he told stories or he taught in parables. I think people associate parables with the teaching of Jesus. Now, even though Mark has the fewest words of Christ of all four of the Gospels, as I said yesterday, after 3 chapters of active ministry, in chapter 4, we have Jesus' first teaching in parables. And the foundational parable of Jesus is the parable of the sower of the seed, which we find in other Gospels as well. And after that, he tells another parable. He explains it to his disciples. And our verse for the day is chapter 4, verse 34. He did not speak to them except in parables, but he explained everything in private to his disciples. So this raises, at least for me and some other people, an interesting question. Why did Jesus teach in parables? Why do you think he taught in parables? Why is it helpful to teach in stories? Why didn't Jesus just teach in propositional statements? This is, God is, rather than God is like, which is more the intro to a story. I think it's because stories and parables are more likely to get behind the defenses that we erect as human beings. If you think back into the Old Testament and the rather dramatic encounter between the prophet Nathan and King David, after David had assaulted Bathsheba and had her faithful husband and commander Uriah killed, Nathan doesn't come to the king and say, "You broke the 10 Commandments, you're a sinner," because that probably would have gotten Nathan killed. It certainly would have made it easier for David not to listen to him or to be convicted. Nathan tells King David a parable, a story about 2 shepherds, one who has only 1 sheep and one who has thousands. And by telling that story, he's able to get behind David's defensiveness, and the word of God is able to penetrate. And I think that's why Jesus talks in parables. When you start hearing a story about birds and seeds and fields and rocks and thorns, you kind of relax into the story, and then conviction can come. I think that's why Jesus teaches in parables. He explains things to his disciples because as his followers and the ones who are going to have to continue to share these stories, he needs to make sure they understand this is what this is about. This is how a story works, so that they can teach in the same manner that Jesus does.